Good evening and welcome everyone to our September Astro-Clearing Circle. We're so pleased to be here to celebrate these last few days of summer with you as we move into this powerful fall season. Valen will have some astrological insights for us in just a moment. So before we get started, I wanted to tell you a bit about Astro-Clearing. It's our elegant combination of soul-based astrology and energy reconnection that we offer in this public space and also in private sessions. We're all living, working, and growing in this time of exceptional uncertainty. Valen and I have talked a lot about this in Circle over the last several months. And though some folks react to these extreme shifts like a deer in headlights, other people are excited by the opportunities opening up right now. And for those of us who are really lit up by these possibilities, we want techniques to help us become more focused, flexible, and resilient as we navigate the shifting landscape of our path ahead. So when you find that the progress on your journey isn't linear, or much of what was familiar has fallen away, and many of your old ways of thinking aren't working for you, Astro-Clearing offers you guidance and reassurance. It supports you to reconnect with your own higher wisdom. So you gain clarity around your best next steps, set yourself up for success as you walk out your soul's intended journey with grace and ease, and can feel a sense of confidence as you work with that new level of creativity in your world. Working with a team, we help you understand how to better intercept conflicts before they arise, remove barriers to connecting with new clients, and improve overall communication and collaboration. So if this attracts you or if you want more information, just reach out to us at toolsfortransformation.ca.
So this is the channeled message that came through for this group and for September, for our September circle. My dear ones, as each of you have chosen your own personal evolutionary path, we would like you to know that you're all guided and supported to step into your own empowerment on this soul journey. The potential future that is open to each of you is unique and aligned perfectly for your individual transformative experience. Your alignment and your own knowing of who you are becoming is now set before you, and it becomes easier at this point to recognize what no longer works for you and what can be released to unburden your path forward. Expansive growth on your planet is manifest through each and every one of your individual simple acts that contribute to the healing of your planet at this time. Honor each small step and understand within the context of the energetic realms, there are no small steps. So just to clarify, I'm talking about the energies of September, but I've just pulled out a few key pieces. I'm actually not talking about the lunar cycles. There just simply isn't the time. It'd be an hour of astrology. So what I have done is I've looked at what's going on in this month and, kind of thought, well, what is really important? So one of the big things right now is the theme of all the major big slow moving planets that set some real tones for our time have turned retrograde, which means as they slow down and reverse, they encourage inner reflection. So it's a time to look back, to reevaluate, to reflect. Almost you can pull out almost any word about where we are going on our individual journey. And it's a lovely inward looking time, and it's also a time where we can actually make changes. We can revise as we are building out this new future. And maybe I'll say this now because I didn't know where I was going to put this in, but I'm sure I've said this before. Over the next 2 years, all of the major planets are going to be changing signs, and that is highly unusual. And that means there is going to be a palpable change of energy in the world over the next 2 years. And of course, everyone's going to feel this in their own way, but it can be the change itself is, can be challenging, especially if you don't understand that there's huge energies changing. So this is a time, the first big planet that's fully stepping into the next sign is Pluto. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But right now, it's our time to actually drop into ourselves and find where we are, because this is the time to align to what our path forward is. We've got this opportunity over the next 2 years. So we've got the big planets that are having us go in and reflect. And at the same time, we've got all the fast moving planets that sort of have more impact on our day-to-day life. They move quickly, there's experiences, there's moods. They're all changing signs this month. So we've got this inward slowing down motion at the same time as we've got change. We've got change and we've got change. So as this month carries on, including starting eclipse season, so the changes are going to be active in our day-to-day personal life, and to recognize that may actually call us to do some deep inner work. This may activate some deeper work, even in the little pieces of our life that we're living in a day-to-day, is a place where we may have to actually step into our deeper reflection on where we are, where we want to be, and where we're going. So it gives you a chance to respond in a new way to the here and now, what's happening in our day-to-day lives, from the insights that we get from the inner reflections. So it's a really interesting combination of energies that are happening right now. And I've got here, which there's sort of thematically that comes from the channeling too, acknowledge the importance of the small steps. To recognize that for each of us, fast moving planets, just little things in life, as we maybe approach something and respond in a way that's actually more balanced and healthy, to appreciate what we've learned and how we are growing in our own journey, in our own healing experience.
So we're going to do things slightly differently tonight than we normally do, and I'm going to encourage us each time that Velen completes a piece of what she's sharing, for us to just make a note for ourselves, and you can do it in your mind or on your paper or in your journal or whatever you have there, to just take a moment to look at something that you might like to revise, a decision that maybe you made, maybe a story that's been going on for you, a relationship, a way that you are in the world, maybe having to do with your professional way of being in the world, maybe your creative way of being in the world. And the revision could be really small. This is this Virgo discernment piece, right? That's asking us to revise. And then all of these outer planets coming into that retrograde space, that time of like, let's rethink this. Certainly Pluto would be a big one for me recently. So just feeling that for yourself, and then contemplating, if you know what that small step is already, great, but contemplating what that one small step might be to support that revision. One small step that supports that revision. If it doesn't come to you now, that's all good. And if you have some ideas about what it is that you would like to revise, and you have a word maybe that's coming to you, or the one small step, there's a word around your action that you're going to take, just toss it into the chat for me, and I'm going to check in to see how well you're balancing for it. Okay?
So part of why I wanted to highlight the planets going retrograde and turning inward is because Pluto, the planet of personal empowerment, has already been retrograde, but has retrograded on September 2nd into Capricorn for the final time for the next 248 years, or it's a little less than that, but we won't be around in this form, probably in another form. So we are having an opportunity to consider what old stories we don't want to carry forward into the new cycle, what old patterns, what fears we can face, what expectations aren't realistic, they may come from anywhere external. What pieces are we ready to let go of? And even, I'm just going to say, even if we're not ready, what pieces do we know we need to, over the next couple of months until November 19th, work on releasing? What really doesn't work for us anymore? And Pluto is about personal empowerment. And it is about our soul evolution. and the death of what no longer serves us. Pluto is the deep dive into ourselves. So we're getting this opportunity to really look back, and it initiated, Pluto went into Capricorn in 2008. So it may be even something to consider. What has the journey been since 2008? And we're about to step into the next 20 years of Pluto in Aquarius, which we'll talk about later. But what we're doing is we're actually looking at the old patterns, stories that we do not want to carry into our future. So it's a really potent time. And because Pluto does the deep dives, is the deep healer, it's the transmuting energy, it calls us to connect to our, I've said inner shaman, but our inner guides in any way, and to allow ourselves the time to do the deep soul searching. And as all the outer planets are turning inward, it's a beautiful time. It really supports that. So we can feel empowered to heal ourselves. And because it's in Capricorn, aligning to our own integrity. What does it feel like for us to be in alignment with what feels right to us? And there's another piece to recognize is what structures we have relied on, but maybe at this point, they don't maybe even need to be pulled out. Maybe they just need to be adjusted, to look at what old structures have supported us in the past. And as we have grown, we don't need to rely on in the same way. So there's a lot of looking at the old things that we have felt really comfortable with and recognize where we don't need to hold on to them anymore. And that's part of the work that is beginning, as of September 2nd, our last, 2.5 months to work in this very particular way with this energy. So very potent and powerful time.
Beautiful. So I'm going to again invite you to just sitting for a moment to check in. And if there's something that feels like an old support, an old scaffold that you've been using, an old crutch of some kind in your life. It might be an old perspective. It might be an old way of being. It might be an old habit. It might be even an old addiction, something that might have come back recently. To ways of comforting yourself, let's say. I'm speaking from monster, for example. So just an old way of being that you are feeling like you might be ready to let go of now, that you might be ready to let go of. I'm seeing that my internet connection is unstable, so I'm hoping that comes back in a moment. I'm also going to remind everybody that if you want to message me directly with any word or phrase that you would like me to work on, please feel free to do that just by choosing me directly in the drop down. So there's a little blue drop down in your chat, and you can choose to message me directly rather than messaging the group. Okay.
So this Plutonian journey, this journey into our own personal empowerment, is being supported and being activated by a couple of different planets. And one of them is Uranus, and Uranus just turned retrograde September 1st. So this is all sort of happening in September. And Uranus is about owning our own authenticity. It's about being the individual. It's about, my story is being called the weird. It's like owning our weirdness and living it. So this is a beautiful time as Uranus turns retrograde to reflect on, are we living our values authentically? And to focus on, as you recognize who you are in your own individuality and your own uniqueness, we all are these beautiful beings that have our own quirks and gifts, and recognize Uranus wants to give you new insights and awarenesses, wants an awakening. So recognize where the turning in can offer you new ways of seeing yourself. And then to know that that is going to support your own sense of personal empowerment and the own deep work, your own deep work that you can be doing, because Uranus is joining with Pluto over the next little while in earth signs to ground, to embody, to make real this new sense of, you know what, this is who I am, and I can stand in that. I can stand in my power around who I am now. So it's a really potent time, and it's a beautiful time that's really supporting us to explore these parts of ourselves and to really, that trine is about growth, and it's about the flow of energy, to kind of be with, well, there's something that's really encouraging me right now into this form of growth. Now, there's another connection with planets, and this is Saturn that is connecting with Pluto. And in this case, this is a more challenging energy. And Saturn is more about the reality check. So there's, as Uranus says, oh, I've got this new awakening around who I am, and oh, that feels so good, and I'm stepping in, I'm being supported. This is more like, oh, there's things you need to look at, and it's going to be a little more pointed, a little more activating. It's not exactly a flow. It's more like, hey, there's something you might want to pay attention to, and you're going to have to do it. So that reality check is activating each of us to take a deeper exploration into our own soul's journey. And just in terms of timing, that combination of planets was exact this May, and will be exact again this month, and then finalizes in January, and then they sort of separate again. But to give a little bigger context, Saturn and Pluto came together in January 2020, sort of when our reality changed. And there was constriction, and there was disempowerment, there was all the stuff that went on in 2020. The seed moment was January 2020. This is the first time that those two energies are being reactivated again in a sort of a challenging way, or creating some sort of tension. So it might also be something to reflect back on what was initiated through the early part of 2020, and then to think, well, where have I come, and maybe at this point, what feels right around what has been worked with over the last 4 years, and that same piece of, and what maybe is holding me back, and what potentially do I not want to hang on to at this point. There's a lot of energy around this piece. So once again, to kind of, even if it feels a little uncomfortable, to recognize, well, thank you for giving me the discomfort so that I can actually pay attention, and to recognize those pieces. Oh, maybe it is time to put something down. And the other piece, Saturn is about manifestation. So it's about hard work, it's about commitment, it's about focus. So to recognize also, and maybe even going back to 2020, maybe look at, well, what was I focusing on? What have I committed to? And what have I manifest through my own personal commitment to something? Really acknowledge and, give yourself a pat on the back for what has happened, because we are moving into this incredibly powerful time of change. And there's a piece where when we can really own what we can do for ourselves, and even step into our own maturity in a way, and that's part of that's a Saturn word, stepping into our maturity, that when we acknowledge it, we actually are charting the path forward that's being opened to us now. And the Pluto part of this is empowering ourselves through our own integrity, through facing our fears. That's the Saturn piece. Through finding new levels of personal maturity. So all of these energies right now are connected to what I was talking about before, which is that Pluto going back into Capricorn, getting a chance to revisit the old structures and re-looking at places where we may want to put down what we've been carrying. These are added energies that are enhancing that experience, that are supporting us and also pushing us in a way to do this work now. So we don't step into the future, Pluto in Aquarius for 20 years, dragging behind us the weight of something that we really don't want to be carrying. So Sasha, I saw you doing clearing as we.
Yes, there's been lots going on here. So a few people are taking some deep dives, which is beautiful. Of course, that's what Pluto is encouraging us, allowing us to do. So, yeah, we're doing some great work
Okay,
in the
awesome.
background.
Very good. I know I could just see the hands going in out of the corner of my eye. So just to kind of put this together, I sort of like to pull together so that some points that we can think about because we are co-creating our future now. And we are going to be doing this over the next 2 years. And so to be really conscious of this is such a huge opportunity for us as humanity. And you know, from my perspective, having chose to be here at this time on Earth and having chosen to be at least somewhat aware of what's going on so that we can work with it. We're not blindly, you know, just going through the days. We're actually engaging in the energies. It's such an exciting time. So to recognize how big that is, the big changes that are coming, it'll be energetic changes and it will be our reality. I'm not psychic. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know astrologically that it is happening. And we're obviously all feeling it in one way or another. You just have to watch the news for a minute. You know that. So this is a great time, especially with all the planets in the larger planets in retrograde right now, to consider what you are co-creating, what you want to manifest, and to start to really focus and realize that your intention, as we were, always used to do our intentions together, we are intentionally creating our future at this time. And once again, I'm going to go back to that, and I don't know if I've got it on this slide, that can be done in small steps. It doesn't have to be big things. It can be a small act of kindness. We all know that, a little small act of kindness make a huge difference. So it doesn't have to be a huge thing, but what are we doing to be aware of it and to be intentional and to watch ourselves? And there's another piece, as Pluto will be moving into Aquarius in a couple of months, and there's another piece about aligning to the higher frequency as we're walking towards our future. And what does that feel like? And can we step into the feeling of gratitude and love and open-heartedness and any of those higher frequency feelings as a way of envisioning our future and a way of walking our path so that we can feel into our future as a co-creative act? And there's something to really recognize, and I feel this really now, and maybe with Pluto going to Capricorn even more so, it's like the stage is being set for a new level of our own personal empowerment. And really, all we have to do is to step onto that stage and say, you know what, this is where I want to be in my sense of self, knowing that if each of us could do that, we would uplift the whole world. So that's a place where what holds me back from stepping onto that stage, that new level of individual empowerment? What makes me hesitate? Where are my fears? So that's just a piece to consider and to work with over this fall. Perfect time. Oh, there's the small steps. So small steps on our personal evolutionary journey bring us to the future we envision. So I guess I'm emphasizing that not only because it came from the channeling, but because it makes it doable. If we think, oh my gosh, I need to be this fully empowered person that's doing these big things, that actually may not be the case at all. And to recognize that if every day we actually took a small step to the future that we want to co-create, that is the path. That's opening up that path for each of us in our own, wherever it is, in our own journey, whatever place that falls for us, and it'll be different for all of us, but to give ourselves the permission to just take a small step and to not get bogged down in old stories about what it takes to accomplish something, what it takes to move forward, like to let go of old patterning, old family stories, old, the voice of a parent in your head, any of those things. This is a beautiful time to really drop into that. And for any of you who know where Capricorn is in your chart, that may be it. You might just want to narrow down and look at where that is and see what themes may come up for you. Just another way that you can personalize this experience that we're all having right now.
Beautiful. Thank you, Velen.
You're very welcome.
So I'm just going to remind everybody to check your chat. I did send some personal messages. If you have any other that you'd like to share, please do so. We're just going to take a moment now to work with this idea or play with this idea of emptying our burden basket and embracing our zone of genius. So that was something that came up in the chat conversation. And the zone of genius is something that helps us to transition with greater ease. Because I think one of the things that the mutable earth sign of Virgo is really great at is helping us to practice being with our discomfort. And let's face it, transition is uncomfortable. So when the wind blows fiercely, or when we go from a very, very cold, certainly here in where we live, this time of year, typically we get very cold mornings and quite hot afternoons. So if you're gone for the day, you have to dress appropriately, because that shifting, changing weather can become your tyrant over the course of the day. Especially, there are times when I've left the house when I'm not wearing enough, and so I'm cold, or I'm too layered, and so I'm hot. And so that I'm talking about comfort because we know that change is uncomfortable. Change causes a certain amount of itchiness or prickliness or resistance. And so just allowing that. So we've got a question about what our zone of genius is. That's an excellent question. So our zone of genius is when we're really feeling like we're in the flow. We're really feeling like everything is working beautifully. We are in that moment of feeling elation or enthusiasm, that we feel passionate about what we're up to or the space that we're in. It might be just our ability to appreciate beauty. It can be very simple. That is your zone of genius. Now, you're not going to have only one. So sometimes we toss around the idea of soul purpose as if there's only one. And many years ago, Velen and I discussed the fact that there are many, we have many. Our soul has many purposes in this lifetime. And some of them get taken care of early on. And some of them wait around. And we don't, you have to wait until you're like in your 70s or later before a purpose shows up to be addressed or to be worked with. And they can change too, right? So certainly with all of the change that Velen just described, that's going on around us in our world, which includes all of our planets, our off-planet allies, and so on. All of that change that's occurring, it makes sense that our soul's purpose may also be experiencing some shift. So there's an underlying architecture, an underlying design there that tells us to some extent what our zone of genius is. And of course, that's where astrology can come in super handy. That's one of the things that Valen and I love to do when we're working with Astro-Clearing, is to use that tool. There are other tools that we can use. Tarot is a beautiful tool for that. We've used that. Tarot Lori is going to be with us at the end of this calendar year in our inner wisdom circle, and she's incredible at drawing out your zone of genius with the tarot cards. Lori Wilson is another guest of ours in Inner Wisdom Circle who's incredible at drawing out your zone of genius in terms of your intuitive gifts. She doesn't like to call them gifts, intuitive skills, developing those intuitive skills. So those are just two small but really wonderful examples where we might find our zone of actually multiple examples in relationships, in our creative, in our world of creativity, how it is that you create. Maybe your zone of genius is in the kitchen. Maybe your zone of genius is with paintbrush, or maybe as a writer. Or maybe that's what you were doing and now you're finding your way into something else. Or maybe the way that you were using your skills in your zone of genius is changing. And that can be disconcerting. All of that can be disconcerting. So we're going to take all of that disconcertedness, all of that prickliness, all of that liminal sense of transition, change, shift that might be feeling prickly or uncomfortable. We're going to take all of that and we're going to imagine that we have it in a basket. And that basket can be small and it can be big. And it could be one that you wear on your back that you're now going to remove off of your back. And it could be one that you've been carrying and it feels really, really heavy, or it's been on your shoulder and it's really heavy. And you're going to take it and you're going to dump it. You're just going to turn it upside down. Just dump it out in front of you. And let's just take a moment here to connect in with the body. So just take a hand, place it on your heart. So your heart chakra, so that's the place that is just below the clavicle, and give it a little rub. You're just going to be really gentle with yourself here, maybe doing little back and forth movements, maybe you're doing little circles, maybe you're doing little figure eights, maybe you're just touching your heart area with your fingertips and being really gentle. Maybe you're doing a little Eden energy medicine. Maybe you want to do a little bit of tapping or thumping. If Sue Mertens were here, she'd be leading us through a little bit of Eden energy, heart thumping. And if it feels good to you to close your eyes, you haven't done so yet, go ahead and do that. Just close your eyes. And we're going to bring attention to the breath. So just notice your breath. Notice what it's doing. It's coming in and out of your nostrils. Maybe there are some smells. I've got dinner smells in the house right now. Maybe it feels just nice and cool as you inhale and then warm and moist as you exhale. Just noticing that. Bring your attention to the flavor in your mouth. Maybe you've just had a drink of something. Maybe you've just had a snack. Maybe you're hungry. Just noticing the flavors on your tongue and on the roof of your mouth. Just run the tongue at the back of the teeth. Just feel the texture of that for a moment. And last but not least, just bring your attention to what you're hearing and connect with the sound that's the furthest away. The sound you can hear that's the furthest away for you. I'm in downtown Toronto right now, so I can hear lots of traffic. Sounds like somebody revving their engine, maybe a motorcycle. Any moment now, I'll hear a streetcar rattling by. So noticing the furthest sound, and then bring your attention all the way back to your body. And as you're rubbing on your heart space, notice the sound of the rubbing. Maybe it's on your clothing, maybe it's on your skin. If there's a little bit of tapping, maybe you're noticing that sound. And then noticing the sound of your own breath, bringing your attention back to your breath, hearing your own breathing. And from this place of presence, fully release all of those pieces that you just dumped out of your burden basket. You don't need to name them. You don't even need to know what they were. Just say to yourself, I release you. I release you with love. I release you with gratitude for any way in which you might have served me. we were told a story. We were in ceremony on Monday, and we had a First Nations elder with us from Curve Lake, and he was telling us the story of wild rice and how when it's harvested at this time of year, it's tossed so that the chaff of the rice is blown away by the breeze. So the late summer winds come in handy for blowing away the chaff. So simple, such a simple way to do it. And so allowing that similar simplicity for you. The late summer winds allow them to blow your burdens off into the distance. It's okay, they can find their way without you. And then just take a moment and connect in with one word that you feel would be a small but important step of some kind, one word that would be a small but important support for you. And you can go ahead and put that in the chat, either personally to me or to the group, whatever you wish, or don't put it in the chat if you don't feel like it, that's okay. One word that you would feel would be a support for you. And the word that I'm going to put in is self-compassion. Beautiful. So we have words like patience, believe, peace. Thanks very much for joining us. And just a reminder that Valen's Celestial Wisdom Astrology cards are available at valensastrology.com. They are a beautiful and brilliant accompaniment to any oracle card deck or wisdom card deck that you already own. We use them often in our work together, and we'll be using them more often in Circle as well. And you can pick those up at valensastrology.com. And a couple of times this evening we mentioned our Inner Wisdom Circle membership and some of the wonderful facilitators that we have had throughout the last 3.5 years, and some of the brilliant ones that are coming up, including Nicole St. Pierre coming up this month, and Tara Laurie at the end of this calendar year, and Laurie Wilson opening up 2025 for us. If you're interested in taking a look at what some of the sample circles in Inner Wisdom Circle events look like, you can do that on our YouTube channel. We also have lots of information at toolsfortransformation.ca, and we have a free Inner Wisdom Toolkit that you can sign up for and share with your friends. That gives you a sense of some of the tools that we like to use in Circle together, and tools that you can also use on your own to deepen your connection to your own inner knowingness. So for now, enjoy.